It's just like fine guys, whatever. You're the superior species.
My video isn't turning on right now, so I'm going to leave and come back.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Mr. Costi will not be able to join us this evening, so we now have everyone here.
Well, we actually don't. We're waiting on Greg Dart.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I'm sorry, isn't there like a,
that's actually later in the meeting anyway, so we can go ahead and.
okay, that's what I was thinking. I thought there was someone ahead of us, so.
Yeah, we do. We have another case, so he'll have time.
okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I have now that it is 6:16 and we have all the members who are able to be here tonight present. So I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals and Property Review Commission open on February 16th at 6:16 right now. So now, Pam, if you would please go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Burke.
Here.
Mr. Elgrid.
Here.
Ms. Schroeder, excuse me.
Here.
And Chairwoman Brennick.
Here. Okay. The first item on the agenda is to approve our prior minutes from our last meeting on January 19th.
And
I know
real quickly, yeah, Meredith had one correction that I made that will be included in what was just where I put that a vote on the previous minutes was passed 5-0, but actually there was only 4 people at the meeting, so it was 4-0. So that's been corrected.
Did you get my comment, Pam? Also, I sent you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was in the property review or in the property maintenance code, correct?
Yeah, that and
Oh, maybe I missed the other part.
I thought there was something else I sent. Let me look here.
Okay, can you, yeah, let me know if there was something else that needs to be.
the one I remember was pretty minor. Like it was, I don't think it would influence the content of approving them necessarily.
Yeah, but if I can get them, we can approve it with all the corrections.
Oh, I know what it was. It just that I sent you a whole bunch of stuff that we had discussed that I was to send you the stuff and that was supposed to be in there. But
Okay.
that's very minor. But.
Okay, so is there, so I think Pam has those noted, or it's in the email that you had sent her. So is there a motion to accept the minutes from our prior meeting?
Motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting as amended.
I'll second.
A motion was made by Mr. Ogrid to accept the minutes from the January, was it the 19th or the 21st? Now I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, I have too many minutes.
The 19th.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
19th.
To approve the minutes from January 19th with the corrections provided by Mrs. Brenniger and Mr. Ogrid. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pam. All right, so we have two cases today. The first is a variance and the second is a property review case. So we will start with the variance, and this is case VA21-01 related to an accessory structure at 4184 Franklin Street. And as we do kind of for each case, we'll kind of go in this order. We'll start with the staff report. I think Jessica will provide that for us. Then there's a chance for the property owner to speak if they wish. Then there's a chance for public input. And then after that, the board will discuss and make a decision. So without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Jessica, to give us the staff report on this case.
Pam, do we have Michael Turner with us?
I think he's in the wings. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. So the request is to install a garage in the rear yard of the property located at 4184 West Franklin Street. The request is for variances from section 18.05A of the zoning ordinance. The applicant's name is Michael Turner. Again, the applicant's address is 4184 West Franklin Street. The property is currently zoned R1A, one family residential. There are no recorded easements on the property. The applicant wishes to place a 24 by 36, 864 square foot garage in his rear yard at 16 feet from the side yard and 10 feet from the rear yard on the southeastern side of the property. The building will be approximately, it says 16 feet in height. However, I spoke with Mr. Turner and he said he's willing to reduce that down to 15 so that he doesn't have to get that variance. With the proposed garage, the lot coverage will be approximately 13.9%. This does not include paved surfaces. Per section 18.5A, detached accessory structures, including garages, constructed on one family lots shall not exceed in aggregate 600 square feet. So the Board of Zoning Appeals should decide whether to grant these variances from the section of 18.05A of the structure for the additional 264 square feet above the maximum allowed. The applicant states that the garage would be used for a boat as well as other storage. And it should be noted that this is along 725. So there is no on-street parking for him. And we have received a couple of responses in support of the garage, and we received one response that was a phone call, and he later followed up with a detailed email that you had just received before the meeting. So that was the only response against the garage. So that's all I have.
So you said there was a change that didn't require a variance that he agreed to already. I didn't quite catch what that was.
It was for the height of the structure. So the maximum allowed height for a structure is 15 feet per our code. And he had originally submitted 16 feet. He said he's willing to bring that down to 15 feet to meet the code.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm just looking, I did not have a whole lot of time right before this meeting. I did see there was a lengthy one that expressed overall concerns for it. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm just looking through it. Okay. Okay. All right. So is that, it sounds like that's the overall summary of the case. Jessica, anything else before we move on?
No, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. In this case, I feel like due to the circumstances of, you know, his location, this may be, and this is not my decision to decide, but this may be one of those cases where you have to look at all the factors to see if he does indeed need a variance from the code.
Okay. All right. Well, now at this point, the property owner is able to give input, and We do ask that anybody who speaks here, whether it's a property owner or somebody testifying on their behalf, that they do get sworn in with an oath. And so we're going to be trying this out, right, Pam? For we've historically had the clerk of courts do it, but I think they've shifted to have the chair do it. So Mr. Mike Turner, I see your name without a video. Hopefully you are here and can hear me.
Yes. Hello.
Oh, yes, great. Now I can see you as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to share the oath, and then you can agree if you are willing. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. So at this point, it's your chance to provide the board with any additional information that would be helpful in us reaching a decision about your variance.
Okay. Yes. Unfortunately, when this house was built, it was only built with a narrow one-car garage. And my driveway passes past that garage, and that is the only place to store our boat, which is not a large boat. It's like a 16-foot boat. On a trailer, it becomes like a 20-foot boat, but it's not, it's not huge, but that's where it was stored previous, was next to the house on the driveway. And if we build the garage, even without the variance, that will be our only to and from to park just our cars back there. So then the boat will be forced to sit in front of the garage on the driveway. That way we can get our cars to the back to the new garage. So my hope is that I can build the extra 12-foot wide. That way I could just back the boat into the side of the garage and then still have the room for the two cars. And I don't have to leave the boat, number one, in the weather, but also sitting out in front of my house in my driveway as well. So I just think it would be, I guess, less of an eyesore, especially being on 725 right here on the main drag through town. And I would much rather, put it in a garage out back and not have it sitting in front of my house, since it won't be able to be on the side of the house. So that's the main reason for the extra 12-foot wide.
So let me ask a clarifying question. So you currently have, you said, like one narrow car garage.
Yeah, and that's got kids' toys and a little workbench, and I mean, just anything that you'd put in a garage is all in that one garage.
Okay, because I didn't know if you were using that for cars at all, but do you have two vehicles, and is the plan are they out now, and then normally, and then in the future they would be in this new accessory?
Exactly.
Section?
Yes. Both of our cars are always parked in the driveway, and in the future they will be parked in the rear garage. Like I said, it's mainly going to be the two-car garage part of it, I guess. The 24 wide, or the main part of the garage. If I don't get the variance, it would be 24 by 24 is what the garage would be, and then that would only fit the two cars. Maybe a little bit of storage around the sides, but no other vehicles could fit in there. So that's why I'm hoping to get the extra 12 foot to put the two cars and the boat back there, and then leave the driveway for, like she said, I have no on-street parking, and it's only a 2-car wide driveway. So if our cars are in our driveway, we can only fit maybe 1 or 2 other cars if we have guests come over. So if we can put our boat and our cars in the back, then we have more parking for guests that come by and park in our driveway. So that's the hope, is to get the extra 12 foot for the boat and keep it out of the driveway.
I mean, that's helpful. I mean, I guess for me it was unclear initially if it was just a boat and just extra storage for things, and it seemed awfully big for just a boat and extra storage.
No, it'd be for the 2 cars and the boat. That's the goal, is to clear the driveway and
make it look nice.
And not have a boat or the car sitting in the front of the garage.
And I guess, so how, the 20, I'm trying to get my calculator up here, the 24 by 24, where does that put you for the square footage then if you don't?
24 by 24 is just under 600. I think it's like 598 or something.
Yeah, or 576 maybe, okay, okay. Okay,
And then that's what the other 12 foot is, just going over the 12 foot is that
For the trailer.
264, or I don't know what it is, a 200 square foot extra.
Would you be extending your driveway back to the new garage either way, or?
Yeah, either way, it's going to have a driveway, just the same that it's up here is a blacktop driveway.
Okay,
It already goes past my house and it ends at the back of my house. It'll just extend back, and the garage will sit off center to my yard. I don't know if you guys can see that little drawing that I had made up where it would sit, but it would sit off center to where it's closer to that side of my house versus right in the center of my backyard. And the driveway would just go straight back to the 2-car garage.
Would you be demolishing the current structures that are there then?
Yep. There's a wood shed that was built by my grandfather, and I don't know if history goes into play here, but I'm actually the 3rd generation that's owned this house. My grandfather bought it. My dad bought it from him and lived here for like 34 years. And then I just bought it. Me and my wife just bought it from him back in 2017. So we're the 3rd generation that's bought this house. But yes, the shed was built, I think, by my grandfather, I think in the 80s or the 70s. And my dad put up a temporary metal shed, which I guess became permanent. It's still there. But yes, both of those will be gone in place of the new shed or the new garage.
And the other thing would be, do you have plans to have utilities on this garage? Or
Just electric, that's it. No water.
Just electric?
Yeah, just electric will run to it.
Any exterior lighting that might interfere with the backyard or neighbors or?
No, the only thing that would be on the outside would be like a wall sconce, like an outdoor sconce that goes next to a garage door. And it would just be, maybe 2 of them, one on each side of the garage door or something like that, just to light the path when we drive in at night or something. But there would be no spotlights or nothing bright like that, just a normal outdoor wall light.
And the materials on the walls of the garage, what were you thinking?
It'll be probably vinyl siding. It'll match, my house has vinyl siding now. So it'll be probably horizontal vinyl siding just to match the house.
Okay.
And I don't know if I don't think I included one of these, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but this is just a drawing that I had drawn up, but this is what it would look like. Is just, it would have the double door for the 2 cars to go in, and then one single door just to back the boat straight in. That's what I'm hoping to do with that extra 12 foot over here, is just back the boat in, close the garage door, and nobody see it, so, but something similar to that. That's not set in stone. That's just something I did on the internet.
okay, that's actually helpful, because in your variance request, I think you said it's an extra 12 feet. And I didn't quite know what you meant by that, but you mean just sort of to have like 12, well, it's 36.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
Kind of going in, so you have two vehicles and a boat is sort of the intention, 12 feet each.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Would you have to move, like you've got like a play set in the back? Would you have to move that or anything else, trees or any other existing things in the backyard?
Nope. I have no trees in my backyard. There's 2 over here on the side of my house and then 2 in the front. There's no trees in my backyard that are on my property. There's trees, but they're in the other people's property.
Okay.
And then the play set is not where we would build. We would maybe temporarily turn it sideways just during construction, but it would probably just be right back where it's at now. And it's only a 1 slide, 2 swing play set. So, I mean, it's not a large play set or nothing, but.
And just a clarification, I think you said that your house has currently a one-car garage?
Yeah.
It is just a one-car garage?
Yeah, it's just a one car, and like I said, I don't know what it is wide, but it's a narrow one car. Like if we were to take everything that's in that garage out, I still don't know if we would be able to. I know the car would pull into it fine, but as far as opening doors, I don't know if you could get one car in it and then open the doors without hitting the doors. It feels very narrow, but it's always had, you know, an air compressor and like a little workbench and, you know, a toolbox rolling around in there. So plus the kids have probably more stuff in there than I do at this point, but.
Would you have any windows or anything like that on the new structure?
No windows. The only thing I plan is the 2 doors on the front and then a little man door on the side just to walk in and out for a person. I wouldn't put any windows on it at all.
Okay, so there's no plan for any workshops or
No.
anything like that?
Nope. No, no business back there or nothing like that. Just to store the boat, park our cars, and that's it.
All right. Any other questions for the Turners? Okay. Anything else you didn't share that you wanted to share, Mr. Turner?
Anything I forgot? Well, I think that's about it. Like I said, I guess I just want to reiterate. I just think the boat sitting in the driveway, I think would be a bigger eyesore than, you know, the garage in the backyard. I guess that's my biggest drawback or takeaway.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for being willing to use our virtual format here. So
Sure.
it's appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, so at this point, we always extend the option for any public input. I don't know do we have anybody that wants to speak virtually tonight, Pam?
So nobody's indicating that they would like to speak, so I'm guessing that they don't want to speak on this item.
Okay, so none for this case.
Nope.
Okay. So we will go ahead and close the public input portion of this. And now it's a chance for us to discuss as a board. And I know, and I think I will get us started. I think it helps me to get a better visualization, I guess when I was conceiving of the case, I felt like it was a rather large structure for just a boat and a few things, and I wasn't so inclined to offer a variance. I mean, I know we've certainly been dealing with a number of these lately, right? And a lot of requests. I do think the location of the house with the lack of street parking and hearing more about the plans helps, I think, for me. I do agree some about the boat being less of an eyesore back there, but it's also true, like, well, what about the next people who own the house, you know, who may or may not have a boat, you know, how desirable is that? Because these structures are pretty lasting, I guess, and that's something I think we do have to consider. And I think even the person who I glanced at the email, that long email that we got sent, I didn't have time to read it in depth, but I think they were worried about that, of even if current neighbors are okay, how are future neighbors going to feel? And that's something I think we have to think about as well. So that's a few things that I guess I'm considering. I don't know where other people are at or thoughts you wanted to bring up.
The one letter I think that we just received, the comment was, the concern was of cars going to the back on a daily basis. How does that interfere with the backyards there? That would be the only consideration. The house does have a small one-car garage when you go by it, which is a little different than some of the other homes that we've looked at have usually had a 2-car garage. So this would be more of the hardship kind of looking case that, there is a small 1-car garage and the homeowners are looking to get a 2-car garage basically with extra storage for their boat.
Yeah,
The
I'll
only
add on to that. That
concern-
was sort of how I thought. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah. Yeah, the only concern I would have is like Meredith mentioned, future use of that extra 12 feet would be a concern. I know that the current homeowners plan to use it as a boat storage. But in the future, it could be, a workshop, who knows? That would be my only concern, but the fact that there's only a 1-car garage that's attached to the house kind of makes it a little easier to swallow having a little bit larger garage in the back. I don't know how anybody else feels, but.
Yeah, I guess that was sort of my thought, was that it's a more of a unique situation. And so that last email that we got today seemed to be concerned about precedent. And sort of the comments were, well, if I were the neighbor or if this, I might be concerned about that. But in fact, we got, I think, 3 emails from folks who are the neighbors who said specifically they weren't concerned about the lighting or in the back. So the folks that are the neighbors today at least don't have a concern. And the one email we heard about a concern was about the height maybe being a concern, but it sounds like the applicants already made that change.
Right.
To conform on the height, so that was the one thing I was going to ask, and that's already been done and accommodated. And the one that we got today sounded like some of the things that the city would have already, checked on in terms of, utilities and things like that to make sure there's no concerns there, environmental concerns. So I'm sure those have already been checked. But it was more a precedent concern. And, I think we don't typically just make a decision and it's just always precedent. I think that's the nature of why we do the work that we do, is that it's a variance from the code and there needs to be a reason for the variance. And so it isn't just, well, someone else got it, then everyone gets it. And as Philip just mentioned, this would be viewed as something unique given the current structure that's there or lack of structure that's there. So I don't think it would be a concern about setting precedent, because we're trying to look at it by itself and saying this is a unique case that doesn't have a garage of adequate size. It's on the main street. It's actually, depending on how you look at it, maybe less of an eyesore than the current situation is, and that the current neighbors at least support it. So I'm in support.
I think for the most part, I pretty much echo what you say there, Sharon, in that, we're always, lately we've been through a sort of a string of these where we've been declining these garages. But I think with each case, we've taken it, one by one, and we've thought through the situation and, is this truly a situation that warrants a variance? Does this meet the criteria for, some sort of a hardship of the property or the area? I do worry about the precedence of these larger garages, but I also sort of in this unique situation probably lean toward approval. They have a lot going for it right now with the lot itself. I mean, for a city lot is relatively large. And then also the fact that directly behind them is like mostly open tree space. So it's not necessarily going to be shining directly into somebody's back window who's, 100 foot back from them. So I think the situations here, I'd probably lean toward approving a variance for this.
All right, is there, and we could continue to discuss it still, but let's go ahead and maybe get it on the table. Is there a motion to approve the variance as is? I guess it would be, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly.
That was one thing. Would the documentation be updated to show that it is a 15-foot height rather than 16? So that we don't have to, come back later that somebody said, oh, you forgot to get a variance on the 16-foot height.
I will add a note that on the permit that states that it is approved with the condition that the building be 15 feet in height.
I think that helps, and I appreciate the
Yeah,
owners being willing to work with us so we can all kind of be happy, I guess. But it sounds like it's a 24 by 36 by 15, I guess, is what we're having a motion to approve. Although even if, I guess the variance is really on the
It's on the square footage at
part.
this
yeah,
point.
the square footage, right? Not the
Yeah.
height.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify, make sure that that was clear.
Sure.
Well, I will make a motion to approve the variance case VA 21-01 for the extra, let's see here, how many square foot is that? Actually?
254 square feet.
200 for the extra 254 square feet asked for in the variance request.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. And before we,
I guess it's 264. It looks like
264.
I don't want to.
264. It is 264. Yeah, it's 864 total. But yes, but now that we have the motion on the table, I mean, I guess I would again say that I think this is more about the unique circumstances, partly the lack of on-street parking and partly the size of the garage. And my guess is it's just older. I mean, garages were smaller, older, right? Cars have gotten bigger too, right? I mean, I think that's a piece of it. There was a small part that says, well, a lot of people just choose not to use their garages for cars because they use it for storage or other things. But it sounds like that's maybe a piece of it. But another piece is the actual size of the garage, which we know cars have gotten bigger. So I am inclined for the combination of those factors to approve it, but being, like Aaron said, being ever mindful of sort of the bigger issue about these larger structures in Bellbrook. Any other comments before we vote?
It looked like the pitch of the roof was going to match the house, so there wasn't any different architectural thing that's going to stick up, beyond. It's going to be in the back of the lot. Looked like it was architecturally similar to the house itself, so it's not like they're building a big barn or something with a barn roof or some sort of different type of structure that would not fit with the types of houses that are there. So
all right, well, shall we have Pam call the roll or call to take a vote?
Mr. Burke made a motion to approve VA 2101, the accessory structure at 4184 West Franklin Street for a structure that allows for 264 square foot beyond code allowance. And this was seconded by Mr. Ogrid. Mr. Burke.
Yes.
Mr. Ogrid.
yes.
Ms. Schroeder.
Yes.
Chair Brinegar.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so motion passes and you have been granted your variance, and as usual, Jessica will work with you following this meeting to take the necessary steps to make it official.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
everybody. Thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you for coming in tonight and explaining to us, answering the questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It was helpful. It's always helpful. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
You wanna stay?
Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. That was our only variance case for this evening. We now have a property maintenance case, and this is for a violation at 129 West Franklin Street. And we're going to follow that same order that we did for the first case. We'll start out with a staff report from Jessica. We will then have an opportunity for the property owner to give input or their representative, and then
Meredith, you cut out.
Lost your sound.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, you're good.
That's good.
Okay, I think it was I was using Bluetooth headphones and I think the battery died on me. Okay. So I don't know. I basically, I don't know what point I left. I'll just make sure it's clear. We're going to just follow the same order. We'll do a staff report from Jessica, hear from the property owner or representatives, the chance for public input, and then we will, the board will discuss and hopefully make a decision on this case, which is an appeal of a property maintenance violation, which is also sort of in our jurisdiction to manage. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jessica for the staff report.
Okay, so this is a little bit lengthy, so please bear with me. I'm going to read from my notes just so I don't miss anything. In the summer of 2020, staff started to receive complaints regarding shingles being stored outside in the front of the building located at 129 West Franklin Street. The shingles appeared on the property around July of 2020. In hopes that the owner or tenant were repairing the roof, staff held off on sending any notice of violation related to the complaints received. By October, when construction had not yet happened, staff spoke with Rick Martin, who had been the city's most recent point of contact for the property. And I'm not sure if you still are, Rick, or the point of contact.
Yeah, we spoke. It was my understanding that at some point in November, work would start.
Yeah. So, let's see. Staff, well, I had a conversation with Rick, and from my understanding at the conversation, it seemed like the shingles were going to be easy to move, and it wasn't going to be a problem because I was really just asking that they be moved behind the building. And then the following week, Rick did come back with me, as he said, and said that work was going to start in November. So staff agreed to, I guess, put an extension on that, and it was around the middle of November. And we also sent a notice of violation just as a precaution in case the construction materials weren't removed just because we had received so many complaints. So let's see. And then I'm just going to go into the arguments that were submitted by the attorney, if you don't mind. So the first argument that the attorney makes is that the code states that outside storage only applies in residential zones, and also that I stated that in the B4 Central Business District, that the parcel's in the B4 Central Business District when corresponding with Rick, and that is true. While there is validity in that statement, the parcel is located in the B4 Business District. It is also located in the Old Village District, which is a mixture of businesses and residential, and is not exclusive to only business. Furthermore, the B4 district in 12.02 permitted principal uses states those uses permitted in all residential districts. By residential being a permitted principal use, it can be argued that B4 is also a residential district, especially with the large number of homes in the district and adjacent properties. In the appeal, the attorney also states that in section 1450-30 of the code, it is the way junk is, I guess, worded is vague, and that the shingles are not in fact junk, but rather for future use. It should be noted that there are no specific definitions for junk per the code. However, dictionary.com defines junk as any old or discarded material such as metal, paper, or rags, or if you wanted to go into the verb form of it, to cast aside as junk, discard, for no longer use or scrap. The items found in the violation have been left out since July of 2020. At this point, the materials have been on the property seemingly untouched for approximately 7 months. Staff believes it is reasonable that based on the common definition above, these can be classified as discarded materials at this point. The intent of the section of code is not to define every item or material, but to simply ensure that the accumulation of materials or items does not become a blight on surrounding property owners. The last argument that the attorney had addressed was that city staff did not identify L&L Diversified Development LLC as a property owner, and instead we notified LAK Enterprises LLC. And in fact, the reason why we did this was LAK Enterprises is the last deeded owner on the property for the county recorder's records, and is also listed as a property owner on county GIS. We have no record of L&L Diversified Development being the owner, and that's why we addressed the correspondence to LAK Enterprises, in addition to Rick Martin and John Landesitle. So I also included the deed for reference for the board there. So in closing, it's really up to the board to decide how they wish to move forward with this, I guess, appeal.
Okay, that time it was just my mute button. I was going to say thank you, Jessica, for giving us the history of this case. And it's now, I guess we give a chance for the property owner or a representative. I guess there's a little bit confusion about it seems like the property owner hasn't been involved in any of the formal correspondence that we've received. Am I accurate in saying that?
Well, I have sent, so I'm not really sure what's going on with the property, to be completely honest. I'm not sure if it's like a lease to own or what's happening. So all I know is that I believe the actual owner of the property is still Chad Coons or LAK Enterprises. So because he is the legal property owner, I have to also address him in the notifications. So that's why he gets sent the letters as well.
Oh, for sure. I was just wanting to get some clarification because in the one letter we have from the attorney, it said that the L&L Enterprise was the property owner. So that was a little confusing.
Yeah, it was very confusing. Is there a way to determine who is actually the legal owner?
Usually how we go about it is through county GIS and county records. If I can't verify it through county records, then I really don't have a way to verify that. So.
Okay, well, maybe some of these questions can be answered. I just noted that on the letter dated 11/19, the attorney said he was retained by the owner of 129 West Franklin, and which was the L&L Diversified Development. So that's where I was a little confused. Since it's, I'm guessing, the property owner that would be, at the end of the day, responsible for these violations.
Yeah, maybe they can help to clarify.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and at this point is where we turn it over first to the property owner first, or their representative, to give us their take and to argue their case.
Okay.
And we will do that, I guess. So if we can clarify who is speaking on behalf of the property owner, and then I will swear you in.
Yes, Adam Stout. I'm here on behalf of L&L Diversified Development. We do have one of the owners of L&L also present tonight, who will have some few words as well on this. So
I can't hear him.
I can't hear very well.
Am I able to be seen on here or heard? I can't tell.
Yeah, we can hear you, Greg.
Okay.
And see it, yeah.
In both. All right. Well, we'll start with the representative for the property owner before we open it up to the public input part. So, Mr. Stout, I will read you the oath here. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
yes. Can you hear that now, or?
Yes.
Okay. To begin with, my as I'm here on behalf of L&L Diversified Development, my understanding is they had become an owner of the property pursuant to a recorded land contract, I think around 2019, and early 2020 on this property. So like, I don't understand why, so which, from what I could see was recorded in the, Greene County Recorder's Office. So, and like, as that would make them a vendee in possession, which would have made them the owner, at least for the purposes of zoning code.
And I also don't understand why that would be said, Jessica. You guys clearly knew that we're owners of the property because you've gotten a hold of us in the past.
Hey, Greg, I don't think I sworn you in yet.
Well,
Yeah, let's,
well,
I mean,
there's already a bunch of conflicting information that's been said, so I should probably be sworn in.
Members of community had notified us that that was probably the case. If that hadn't been the case, then
Well, I disagree because you have contacted us and so has other people from the city in regards to other circumstances, and you know that we were. So I don't agree with those statements.
well, let's proceed with the at least it sounds like that the L&L development is taking responsibility for the property maintenance violation code. So I don't know if we can speak to sort of your concerns related to the appeal.
Can you swear me in, please?
And are you are one of the owners for the L&L?
I am.
Okay. I will go ahead and read you the oath. Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, if you speak or the next person that speaks, we should also have you make sure you just state your name and address for the record as well.
Okay. Greg Dart, 74 East Franklin Street, Bellbrook, Ohio, 45305. I would like to know before we continue, did staff and members here tonight receive a letter from L&L Diversified Development in response to several other emails and letters?
We received something, yes, it was a sort of lengthy email from the owners and agents of the property. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we got
Has
that.
everyone received that?
Yes.
that is not pertaining to the appeal.
So I have watched the other meetings that have been on Zoom, and we asked for a continuance because myself and other representatives were not in town. So I don't understand why the last meeting was said, if you can't get a response, we're just going to fine them. But I want to clarify these things before we continue, please. When we asked for we had a very good reason to not be able to attend a meeting. I do watch these Zoom meetings if it's something we're involved in, so I don't understand why that was said last time.
I think if you appeal, the appeal goes to the Property Review Commission, which is our board, and we meet monthly, and you can choose to testify, but we could potentially consider the appeal based on the written appeal that you sent in. I mean, that's my understanding. And we granted a continuance twice. I don't think we actually have a formal policy saying we have to, but we did extend that courtesy. And so that's my understanding, that it would be taken up at the next scheduled meeting after being postponed twice.
All right, I understand that. Earlier, Jessica, you said that there were complaints. So we were told that there was a complaint by a particular individual. There was not complaints. And I'd like to verify who the complaint was from.
I guess what I would like to do is that the purpose of this meeting is to address the appeal. So you think the violation was not somehow accurate? Can we focus on that portion of it?
We can, but there are other aspects that need addressed. And if we can't address all of them, then I don't think we're going to get very far, because I want to know who made this complaint, because I was told who made it, and it was one individual person.
We receive complaints via the phone, and usually those complaints are anonymous.
Okay, but you told us who complained. So let's be straight here. I've put up with enough picking on, and I've had enough of it. I would like public record to be made of who made the complaint.
I don't know that that is a standard function of this board.
I don't care whether
so-
it's standard or not. I want it stated who made the complaint.
I mean, that could be something, and I don't, that could be something you could probably ask as a records request if it's.
Oh, I know who it is. I don't need to ask. I want it stated I want it stated here and now before we proceed who made the complaint.
You know what? I feel like there's some other history here that is maybe not the jurisdiction of this board in particular. But
there absolutely is, and unfortunately, though, you're the one that has to. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but you're right. There is a lot of history, and I'm tired of coming to these meetings, and I want some things settled because I'm tired of being picked on and harassed, and I'm tired of my group being picked on and harassed. And before we proceed, I want it to be known, public record, who was the one that made the complaint. Jessica, are you going to be able to do that or not?
I can't remember who specifically was that you're referring to.
You told us who it was, and we were told who it was also. So let's refresh the memory and figure out who made the complaint, because it's quite a problem, because it was one individual person that made the complaint.
I have no memory of that. I have.
Okay.
I know that
you told us it was Ernie Havens that made the complaint. And I have previously watched the other meetings.
I know that we had received some complaints from council members, but as far as who those council members were, like, you know.
I was told directly by city staff that it was Ernie Havens and Ernie Havens alone.
It very well could have been Ernie Havens, but we had also received complaints from members of the community.
That was never told to us. There's also been complaints about a car that was brought up in the past. They've not received any violations. And as far as I know, in the city of Bellbrook, Greg Dart and any GL Dart or anything related to me, I'm the only person that has received a zoning violation. So yes, there is past history, and we're going to address these things to be able to continue.
Excuse me. That is not the place for this case. This is the case on 129 West Franklin Street. That is all we're discussing tonight.
But that's what we're talking about. But again, I'm the only one that's ever received a zoning violation, and I'm stating on public record right now.
That may be a separate issue, and I know we don't, routinely patrol these things for zoning violations. They are property maintenance violations. They are based on complaints, and that's what initiates the process. And so that's
okay. I would like to know that
there's been an appeal to the property code. That's what I would like to have our discussion focused on.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go back to the previous meeting. You guys may not want to hear this or do this, but it has to be done. So the last meeting, there was a complaint about a car on 725 East Franklin that was broken down. Do you recall that?
Yes, and I sent a violation notice to that individual. It is the green Honda where the veteran had died.
Okay, it was also Mr. Dart, that was not the BZA-PRC.
I have not reviewed that.
It was not this board.
I understand, but it was insinuated that it was my car by a council member.
That is not what we're discussing tonight. We are discussing.
I want to discuss it.
No, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this meeting if you cannot follow the rules of the board meeting.
Okay, but what are the rules? I want to just.
The property owners are to give testimony about why they feel the violation is incorrect in some way. It's about the appeal. You made a formal appeal. There were
sure did.
reasons stated for that. And that's just to sort of explain the reasons for us to consider of whether we think that the property violation should be honored or not.
Okay. We can talk about that, but I'm stating for public record that Ernie Havens made a complaint, who has a conflict of interest with me and that property and my properties and other properties that our group is involved with, and he did it vindictively. And that's why we are here tonight. I'm tired of having my time and resources and attorneys and staff wasted because people are doing this. And they're picking on me. I went through enough.
All right, so listen.
A year and a half.
Well,
No, listen, I'm going to speak.
the
You can
rule
cut me off.
for appeals,
okay.
and if you can't focus on that, I think we will have to limit your time.
Okay, well, if we don't resolve this, this is not going to end well, because we're going to have to go a much deeper and heavier legal route after this meeting. I received a violation that is for residential codes. Okay, we've already talked about this. If someone would have read my letter, they would have understand we're working on a building. People should be appreciative that we are working on a building during COVID pandemic, and a building that's been sitting vacant for a very long time. Instead, we're getting violations for shingles, which are to improve our town. So I think this is a complete, it's harassment is what this is. And I take offense to it because I'm trying to do good things, and so is my group, the groups of people I work with on properties, and this is harassment. We can call it an appeal, you can call it whatever you want, but I've had enough of it, and so has my staff, and so are my partners had enough of it.
To be fair, I waited months.
I don't care. It doesn't matter though. That's your opinion. And tell Dots, tell the Monument Place, tell every business in Bellbrook they're not allowed to store their materials and their uses outside. Tell everybody they can't do it. You are singling us out, particularly because we have some piles of shingles. Tell every bit you can't do this to just us. And that's what you're doing. It's called selective zoning. And we've had enough of it. I've put up with enough of it with the hardware store and everything a long time ago. I did exactly what you guys asked. It was selective zoning because people wanted to try to, no, listen to me, not you guys, and I'm sorry, you have to hear this side of me and us. Unfortunately, they leave it to you to have to deal with, but people wanted to try to take my building. Council members, people running for council and city staff were trying. No, listen, they were trying to take my building.
Guys, back to this case, and it sounds like, to summarize, that the reason for your appeal was that you are not in a residential zone. Is that correct?
No, and we're working on the building. We should not be violated. Then why are other people not violated for having materials outside of their business?
My guess is
why is it us?
Yes, I think that's
I know, because Ernie Havens complained, and the city of Bellbrook staff told us that Ernie Havens complained, and right after that we got a violation, and it's on the council meeting and the city planning meeting and the zoning meeting about it. We are being singled out. This needs dropped and it needs stopped. We can appeal whatever we're still in an appeal from last year, bleeding city money and bleeding resources of other people that don't need to be over violations that were selective against us, and it's continuing. And you may not want to hear it, but we're going to talk about it. Well, this is never going to get resolved.
I'm gonna again keep us focused, for the record, on the case that we have jurisdiction over. And it sounds like that you've mentioned the resident, that it does not apply to you because you are not a residential zone. I believe there were 2 other points in the appeal. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to those, or maybe.
May I interject, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And I apologize for interrupting, Ms. Council. Kind of review, like as shown in the pictures. I kind of want to back up here, like on the pictures depicted of that were taken by Jessica over, as far as like showing these are shingles. They're unwrapped.
They are not unwrapped. They're not unwrapped.
I'm sorry, Paul, you're right. They are not unwrapped. They are neatly and orderly stacked on pallets. Like, I mean, and not, and so like, it's not like, and these are also currently being used for, you know, even Jessica in her letter, I do want to point out, like, her own letter dated November 12th, 2020, kind of acknowledged that this property is, you know, they're still working on the work, like, and I quote, like, that they're still working on and are currently working on the 129 West Franklin property. Like, and I quote, as according to her letter, I understand that there has been a transition with the 129 West Franklin Street property. In the transition, there has been exterior and interior work that appears to be in progress. I am personally thankful there is progress being made with the building and am anxious to see the finished results. So the city, you know, is aware that they are currently working on the property. Just because they have not gotten necessarily to, you know, redoing the roof, it's hard to say that these materials are officially junk at this point, according to that, or by saying that they have been discarded when the city's own correspondence acknowledges that they are working on this property. So
let me interject that although I haven't been sworn in, it is a large property.
Well, then let's pause then, okay? Because that is important. So I'm gonna have you swear, we'll read you the oath. And are you an owner, or are you doing public input?
I'm just, I'm staff. But I
Okay,
think
so then, well, why don't we wait until the public input portion? Because I believe this.
because this is important to be said now.
Yeah, I want him able to speak
Rick.
and represent. He's been heavily involved in this, and if he has something to say, I want him sworn in.
It can wait. I mean, I guess, but I mean,
Can't wait.
there's an
No,
order.
no, this can't
the
wait. We're
property owner-
tired of dealing with this.
Meredith, if you want me to take notes and then hit you with the notes for an hour and a half later, I'll be happy to do that. If you want me to speak my mind, to tell you what I believe is going on, to help illuminate and put into context what both Adam and Greg are saying, I will do that. But that's the only way you're going to get the truth.
Context can help. And I just ask that you wait. I feel like we haven't even been through the
Meredith,
the summary of the appeal.
Here, let me
has
stop.
stated that.
Everybody stop. Let me explain this. If we don't work through this, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm sorry for all of the staff, because this is not your fault. I know you guys do this and you try to help out, and I think you're volunteers. And I'm sorry that you get this downward spiral and hit with this. And I'm sorry Jessica came into a storm that she had nothing to do with, and I don't hold anything against her. But there are things that have happened in the past, and you guys can sit here and tell me that, and I'm going to argue with you. I have nothing against any of you personally. And again, I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but we are tired of this. We're fed up. If this doesn't get resolved, we're going to seek a major legal route after this. It's going to be very detrimental to everyone. And I'm sorry to have to say that, but we are fed up with this. We're wasting our time, my staff's time, my time, and I've had it wasted now for almost 2 years, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the expense. I'm sick and tired of it. I want to move on to productivity, and I want Rick Martin, if he has something to say, he deals with this on an ongoing basis. And I am sick and tired of hearing about people say the city's bleeding money from legal. We're bleeding money dealing with this, and I'm tired of it. I'm telling you guys that right now.
Ready to close the portion of the property owners. We can do that, but
Okay,
I'm a property representative. You're going to.
He is the property representative that deals with this on a daily basis. And
No,
if he
both of you,
needs to
please
speak,
stop.
I want him to speak.
Meredith, this is an appealable error. If you do not let me talk by swearing me in now as a witness, it's an appealable
Rick,
error, and we're
please
going to take
stop.
it to the next level.
I know, Rick,
you-
just stop.
are
If
you
they're not gonna
threatening
swear you
your
in, if they're, we're gonna stop the meeting if Rick can't talk and
I never said Rick couldn't talk. I'm just trying to
Okay.
follow the order we follow at every meeting that I
This
know.
order is silly, Meredith. What we need to do is put facts on the record when we hear something to add context. You know that's true. You're trying to keep me off the record. Don't you dare do this.
I'm not going to keep you off the record. What I just
And swear
suggested
me
is,
in
are we,
now.
can I please, hey, listen, I am the chair and I'd like to say something. I offered to close the portion of the property owner speaking, and then we open it up for public input.
This is
I'm not done
just
speaking.
public input. You are wrong, Meredith. You're making a process error. I'm going to now object. You are not competent to hold this position if you do not swear me in now as part of the property owner record.
I'm not, I mean, Jess, I don't know if I was kind of confusing who all counts as, just by saying you're a property owner representative, does that count?
let me speak, Rick. Hold on.
No.
Rick deals with this on an ongoing basis all the time with Jessica, with Adam, with me, with the property owners themselves, the county and anybody, and he has just as much right to say something as anybody else.
Because, I mean, what the title,
Because I said so.
And
Because I want him to say, I want him to speak because he has knowledge of, and obviously needs to say something. He's the one that he gets paid to deal with all this.
Rick, tell me that. You have not said that.
I said he's staff, and I said he gets
listening.
paid to do it all the time. He deals with Jessica, the county, the city, everything on these ridiculous violations that we have received.
Yes, Meredith, I primarily deal with Rick in the past, especially with violations. Like if you look back in the staff report, you'll note that there were conversations with Rick rather than like Greg or John. The conversations I've had about the violations have been always primarily directed with Rick. And I think Rick is like kind of like their liaison to deal with the city. So if he has something to say, I don't necessarily see a problem with that, but that's really your decision. So
I mean, to me, partly, I think it's just getting clarification here. I mean, it's helpful to know that more than just saying somebody gets to say something because I say so. But let's go ahead and swear you in, Rick, if you're open.
Yes. Thank you.
Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to the board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then please state your name and address for the record, and then you can proceed.
Richard Martin, 80 Linden Avenue, Dayton, Ohio, 45402.
So go ahead. It sounds like there was context you said that you wanted to provide.
The building has a lot of square footage. I'm trying to remember back to what I wanted to interject before we had this disgustingly useless argument about process. The building has a lot of square footage. The building was originally being looked at one point, from what I understand, as a building that was going to be torn down, at least in part. What's going on right now is there's internal work being done on the building that will facilitate the roof eventually being laid. I don't know the timeline for that. You'd have to talk to Greg about that. But the roofing tiles at this point cannot be moved realistically. And they can't be moved to the back of the building, it turns out, because the slope of the driveway to the back of the building would tip over a bobcat or anything else you can use to move those tiles. So that's
one good reason. Yeah.
Now, Greg wanted to also address issues in regards to the added expense of the materials being used based upon supply shortages caused by the coronavirus. So if I may direct to Greg to address those issues, because he is much more knowledgeable than I will ever be on the subject.
Another issue is that alone plywood has it's doubled in price, and now it's climbing even more. There's staff problems with people. There's codes, blueprints, drawings. I mean, I can go on and on and on about the difficulty of things. The same reason we're on a Zoom meeting and not meeting in person.
So that explains the delay in getting those shingles on the roof. How does that, is opposed to like moving the shingles somewhere else? It's more about the delay? The
Okay.
COVID isn't impacting
Why?
to move
Okay.
the shingles, is that correct?
No, they've been set. Well, I'll tell you, hold on.
Because I guess my point is that I think that the violation didn't require that the work be done instantly on the roof, given all the COVID. It was more about the violation was just related to them sitting there.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, if you had communicated with me that you couldn't move them down behind the building, you know, I'm not an unreasonable person. I would have taken that into account. And if you had told me that you wanted to wait until the spring or something to put the materials on, you know, that's something we could also have taken into account. But instead, we got into the appeal process. And like I said,
well,
the violation notice was just as a precaution because you guys had still told me that you're going to start construction at the beginning of November.
But Jessica, unfortunately, you guys aren't going to like this. It's none of your business what we're doing or when we're doing it. That roof has been sitting there in bad condition for years and years, probably like 7 years. It's not your decision to decide when we want to put a roof on. It was there long before we started working on it. You should be thanking us, if anything, for starting to work on the building. It's been sitting there like that for years. It's not okay that you want to violate us because Ernie Havens called and said, I don't like the shingles out front. Let's pick on Dart. Let's pick on Dart roofing and construction. And that's what happens. Okay, let me ask you this. Go behind the dairy shed. Brian Coe, for instance, he's had stuff out there for years. Do you make him move his gravestones when he was out there? Do you make Dots move their skids and their pumpkins and their ice and their salt and their stuff outside? Absolutely not. Do you make Stan move his stuff? No, you don't. You pick on me, and I'm sick of it. And unfortunately, you've been told to do this by staff, and that's why I hate getting on you. But that doesn't mean you have to do it. And that's the facts here. I don't care whether you want to have a roof done. The roof was never going to get done. It should be thankful that we're doing the roof.
Are you going to let me speak? The difference.
Not if you're going to continue to try to tell me about putting a roof on, and you're going to violate me for not putting a roof on. No, I'm not. Your predecessor got fired over those kind of things because he was conducting illegal zoning activity and not following code and selectively zoning.
All right. The violation is not the timeliness of the roof.
So the violation is because the materials are not related to the use of the property. Particularly.
The violation is because Ernie Havens called in and complained vindictively about it.
Can you mute him, please?
Okay, but you've never come clean with telling us that Ernie Havens called in. You know that you told me and Rick that he was the one that called in and complained because we asked. He also complained about other things and has caused other problems intentionally and tried with other organizations as well.
So the items at Dots are customary to the use from which they are there for. So the skids of salt or pumpkins or what have you, that is the use that Dots had gotten approval for. The tombstones at the funeral home, that is customary with the use for which it is approved for. The pallets of shingles is not customary with any of the businesses that you have at that property currently. So how am I
supposed? That's not. May I interject? That's not what you cited. You cited them specifically for. I mean, the issue of like whether or not it's customary for the use is not relevant under the specific language of this code. You cited them specifically for violating 1450.31J.
But again, we were only cited. We were only cited because Ernie called in and asked you to cite us. Let's be frank and straight. It was in the meeting that I watched the city goal planning meeting, and you admitted to Ernie the only time that somebody gets a violation if there is a complaint. So Ernie complained and we got a violation back then. Let's be 100% factual here, or we're never going to get anywhere.
Now, maybe we should also look at moving ahead at how we can define a schedule, even a loose schedule, to the work that's going to be done on the building. Maybe that.
No, we're not going to do that. We're working on the building as fast as we can, and there's no requirements for that. It's our building. We'll work on it when we can afford to, and when it's time. People are not going to control when we work and do work on a building, especially during a pandemic. It's not happening. We're working on a restaurant space. Restaurants are going out of business right and left. We're trying to do something that no one else is going to try to do right now.
So is there
there is no schedule
information that you think would be helpful for our board to hear on this appeal related to that particular violation, which was a violation of outside storage?
Yes.
Well, okay. What would be, okay. Again, I'm going to go back to outside storage. Show us where it's not legal or to code or in the ordinance for a commercial property to store any kind of materials outside. That means you have to do that to every business in Bellbrook. That means you got to go up to Innovative Flooring, Skyline Chili. You got to go all the way down 725, Stan Lawnmower. You got to go to Dots, Dollar, anybody. The florist behind it, they can't store stuff behind there. Then you can't single me out, and it's becoming personal harassment, and it's also becoming a defamation case. And I'm telling you, if we don't resolve this, that's where we're going. And I'm done with it. I'm done wasting my life and time having these meetings. No one's going to tell me what to do with my properties for investors I have and other owners that I represent. I'm done hearing about it. I'm done having a councilwoman try to insinuate that I have a broke down vehicle on 725, because that's what happened in the meeting. And it's defamation when a councilwoman gets on and no, listen to me.
I hear.
It says, insinuates that I have a broke down vehicle. If she lives in the city of Bellbrook and is actually a councilwoman, she should know that Moon passed away and that vehicle has been sitting there for 3 or 4 years with a broken out window. Don't try to put that crap back on me and pick on me and bring up my name in a city goal planning meeting and then put it off to you poor folks that we got a pile of shingles out there. I'm sick of it. People need to do things like they do in Miamisburg, where they're providing grants, where people are providing help. Jessica should be able to give a positive hand to somebody like us instead of violating us for shingles. It's ridiculous, and I'm sick of it. So find me, do whatever you got to do. But I'm telling you, if this doesn't go away, and I still may not let it go because I'm sick of it, but if something positive is not done and poor Jessica doesn't have a chance at helping people instead of violating for piles of shingles, I am going to fight this. I am stubborn, and I am sick and tired in the little town that I grew up in that people are wasting their time, tax dollars, city resources, and staff and mine to talk about having shingles in a parking lot that are there to improve a building during a worldwide pandemic. That's it. There's no appeal. Release it. There is nothing.
There is no appeal?
No, you need to let it go. You need to drop this case, and this needs to be over with now.
Okay. Well, you're saying, well, you are appealing technically, just for the record.
Okay, but I'm saying you guys need to stop now. We're working on do something productive instead of waste your time and ours. Okay. And go after the people that are causing problems in the city.
We've heard that sort of, the concerns about the defamation and being targeted. I think that's been heard.
But it's true. You guys were going after me for over $100,000 worth of 29 violations on my building, and not a single one of you had ever been to the building or looked at any of them until I had to come in. I got violated for things that weren't even my property.
bring us
No,
this
you
back.
brought it up.
Noted on the
Brought
record.
it up.
I was summarizing what you said, hopefully to kind of wrap it up. I know Mr. Stout has been trying to raise his hand or to interject. Is there anything we've missed before we move to deliberate?
Yes, I would really like one of the problems that as far as with Jessica's construction or interpretation of the code is because I'm gonna go first point says first section of 1450.31J in residential zones, all outdoor storage shall be effectively screened from you, and storage of miscellaneous items must be within enclosed structures or screen is required by the zoning code. Now, it doesn't say anything as far as it must be within a customary use. There's nothing reference to that. There is nothing reference to that within the language of the code. So, and nor is there any kind of nor anywhere in provision that would give her discretion on whether or not to prevent blight or anything else within this code. It's her interpretation is ultimately arbitrary in this situation, because if you take the position that a multi-use district such as the central business district and say the specific code applies to a multi-use zone, then that would be every commercial property that has any inventory or any other properties stored on it externally would have to be screened. And I do want to point out, I had sent some pictures to Ms. Timmons. I think you told me you got them today or yesterday. If you specifically look at D&E, our exhibits D&E, it does show that's the neighboring property over it, which happens to be Dots Market. You can see the same, you can see inventory, arranged in the same structures actually as these pallets of shingles. So that stuff is exposed. That stuff is supposed to include and stored in the same manner as these shingles. There's quite frankly, there's nothing in the code to give her, guidance to make a broad discretionary use discretion on this.
Nope. And I have another question. So if it's my understanding now after tonight and watching these previous meetings, if someone makes a complaint, then a violation is issued. So I want to make a complaint.
Someone issues a complaint and I find that there is a violation is issued.
Okay. Well, I want to turn your office building in for a violation just to prove a point that you have overgrowth and brush on the sides of your building that is not maintained. The same thing you fined me for a year ago. You guys don't live up, not you necessarily, but the people that are having you do this to me are not even taking care of their own city building. I got violated and fined for having overgrowth in an alleyway that's not even all my alley, but the city's allowed to have that and also have a broke down abandoned garage that's about ready to fall over bordering your property. But I'm the one that gets fined and violated for trying to improve a building.
I guess it's also there. It seems like that you think there's a foregone conclusion that our board is just sort of like a puppet or something, but I would hope that our board is going to discuss this, right? It seems
I'm hoping your board would try to do something and tell the staff and the city and the people doing this that, hey, this is wrong. Let's rework this and try to do something about it instead of wasting everybody's time. Bellbrook is never going to be productive if this kind of nonsense continues. It really won't. It's going to be a complete waste of time. It's never going to improve. It's never going to become a better city. It's never going to become what everybody wants. It's going to continue to grow, and people are going to gossip and have hearsay and waste time on silly things like this instead of supporting us and being productive. Because guess what? I'm not going anywhere. Nor are the other people I work for, and nor are other groups of people that have been here their whole life.
So I hear that. I feel like we're not getting any additional new information at this point. I hear kind of some rehashing of things.
Well, no, I disagree. I just gave you a bunch of new information. You said, where can we go? And I said that some things need to be done. And I feel like your board should go talk to the city council and figure out how to make this nonsense stop.
I guess
That
I
would
meant,
be the most
I guess I
productive
meant new
thing.
information about the appeal is what I meant, because that's really our focus here. I'm aware there's broader concerns that you feel have not been heard by the city. I hear that.
Well, I want to understand why that I'm the only one that gets some violations. Just can you answer me that?
I don't. I mean, I think what I know is that, I think it's been said before that we don't have the staff, the human capital to be out patrolling for violations, that we do rely on largely on citizen complaints, and we follow up, and we always do try to resolve them informally if we can, because we want things corrected more than we want to be punitive, I think. And so that's my understanding, and that it was response to a complaint. And so I think at this point, I'd like to move to close the public hearing portion of it, to give the chance a board to discuss this. Because a decision has not been made yet. I mean, I think there's sort of this sort of undertone of the conversation that assumes it's a foregone conclusion, but that's why we're here, is to hear appeals, and these things aren't always black and white.
Okay, but again, I want to state this again because I don't think it's sunken through yet. We got a violation because a council member who was running for council and going around defaming me personally and my business and trying to take a building from me by violating me in the past, which you had to deal with. He decided he wanted to cause problems for us. So he called to complain about building materials that are sitting in a parking lot that are going to be used to improve Bellbrook, Ohio.
That was clear. We had heard that.
That should have been stopped a long time ago. I'm totally willing to work with Jessica. I like Jessica. I don't have a problem with her. I think she's trying to do a great job. She's way better than the last person that was doing her job, because she actually cares and will communicate and communicates with our staff. But we're not going to be told what to do. We're not going to be singled out, selectively zoned. And the person that filed a complaint has a conflict of interest and should not be allowed, and he needs stopped from doing this kind of activity. And that's
noted.
my point.
That's been noted multiple times.
All right. Well, until that happens, we're going to be coming back again, because he's already done it on another instance very recently. So it's going to happen again.
Before we close the witnesses portion, may I address the board?
Yes.
Appreciate what you folks go through. I apologize that I lost my temper. I felt it was that important, though, to get this information on the record. So I do apologize, but I appreciate the time you gave me.
I appreciate that. And I apologize. I was not aware of your title, other than, and I'm just trying to keep the order of things, but I hear that it sounds like you do work routinely with Jessica. I think there was, who the key players in this case was admittedly confusing, as far as ownership and tenants and things like that. So I think hopefully we are all on the same page at this point, or as far as understanding the players.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and close the public comments on this. I don't believe. Well, let me double check that to go with the rules. Pam, was there anybody else that was interested in speaking on this case that was maybe unrelated to the actual L&L?
So
okay.
None of the people are raising a little chat hand, so I'm thinking that's a no.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and then open this up for our board to discuss. And I know there was a lot of extra kind of information, and some maybe it's extra, maybe it's contextual. I guess it depends on your perspective. I'm happy to kick this off with some of my thoughts. Right. I think the spirit of the violation was probably correct. I think it's a poorly worded code. I think it is clear that it said there's two parts to the outside storage, right? If we look closely, right, the first one has to do with, it says in a residential zone, right? And having to do with the outside storage. The second part has to do with junk, but that actually applies to any property in Bellbrook, not just residential. So I feel like we have two, in my mind, the way I frame this, we could look at this one of two ways. If the shingles are considered junk, I don't think it matters if it's in a business district because it says any property. But there's a question, is it junk? That's debatable, I think. And I'm not so sure that they count as junk. Now, the first part of that outside storage code seems like it's more lenient of storing a variety of things, not just junk, but it is pretty specific that it says in a residential zone. I think it's unusual. I was looking through the other property maintenance codes, about none of them say in residential zoning. I think it's unique. I'm not sure what the intent was behind that, but I think the letter of the law is not great. And I think it does sort of suggest that the appellants have a case here. So that's to me, that's the heart of the issue. It's the zoning, does it apply, and the is it junk?
I think you summarized that well, Meredith. I mean, it all comes down to, the 1450.30. And then from there, we kind of spiderweb out into some of these other areas to define, the direct wording since it is ambiguous. Just, off the top of my head, the first part about outside storage regarding the residential district, I have a little bit of a hard time calling the central business district, is that what it's called?
Yes.
A residential district. But I do gravitate towards the second sentence about, any property. So I guess from my standpoint, I kind of get down to how do we define junk, or, what are the stipulations? I think that's sort of where I'm at, and maybe the discussion where I could use input from you guys on what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I know, and just to put it out there, I know that this is, some of these codes we've been working on to get that clarification so that we're in these situations, we have a better definition of things like junk. But I think that comes down to it. Like if we consider it junk, I feel like we have the authority to give the violation, right? I'm not sure it rises to the level of junk, given that they're unopened. It may be, I mean, my preference would be that they do get moved somewhere else. I think the spirit of the law suggests that, right? But I think the letter of the law, I struggle with that.
Yeah, I don't know if the definition of junk, the roofing shingles in and of themselves are not junk. I think it comes to the roofing shingles have been sitting there for 7.5 months. I think that's more of the issue, at least from what I'm seeing. Is
Yeah, that's
that
sort of the way
they're
it's
sitting there,
because
all
so
across the property.
Of course, it's also 7.5 months now, right? I mean, I guess it was still a while, but a few months when the initial violation was given, I guess.
Am I still on here or no?
No, at this point, it's just the board to deliberate.
All right, well, I would like to say something, please.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Dart. Keep it brief.
Okay. I would like to know, do you think that at the arcade project in downtown Dayton, do you think that for 4.5 years, the arcade gets violations from the city of Dayton for having materials along the sidewalk while they're rehabbing the arcade?
I wouldn't presume to know that.
Heck no, they're down there supporting them and trying to help them. We don't get that. We're getting harassed. Construction takes time. No one can even go to work right now. People are working from home. Material suppliers, actually, just so you all know, shingles are on allocation. And allocation means that it's hard to get shingles. It's hard to get materials. Plywood, all materials are going up drastically in cost. Okay. So we got shingles when we could before they either ran out or they were not available. And they take up not even really a whole parking space. And they're not unsightly by any means. And the building is being worked on and constructed. There are multiple properties around Bellbrook that have been worked on and having materials sitting in people's yards and buildings for years and years and years in Bellbrook, Ohio. They don't get violations.
I hear that. It adds to your.
But you hear it or you understand. You say you hear it, but you don't. You're not understanding or agreeing with me, which is a problem.
That's not what I'm here to decide today, right? And in fact, if you heard me, I'm actually feel like I'm not sure the violation is lawful.
It's not at all. That's why I'm upset that we're here.
But it's not because I felt like we were singling you out. It's the letter of the law, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's our function, is to interpret the law when sometimes there's some ambiguity there.
Okay, but
you're sort of fighting me when I'm sort of I don't know, it was sort of felt like I was on your side but maybe for a different reason. But I'm trying to keep focused on my job of focusing on interpreting the property maintenance code, and you have given an appeal, and I'm trying to understand if that appeal has some merit. And I'm saying I think it might.
Fair. Okay. I'm going back to we're here for ulterior reasons, though, is what I'm saying. You're being put in a position to have to deal with this, and you shouldn't be. And this meeting should actually be stopped, and you guys should go deal with this outside and investigate what we are saying and come back and deal with this. That's what I think should happen. Because you're being put in a place to basically continue the selective zoning against us. You're deciding on a matter that is unfair, that's singling us out, and it involves a lot more than just whether or not some shingles are in a parking lot and whether or not it goes to the letter of the law.
And I hear that. I don't have any jurisdiction over some of those other things. I can do my best to do my job right here. And I hope, and I think my board is going to do their best as well.
Who would have jurisdiction to deal with that? Because maybe we're talking to the wrong folks as well. Who would we take those items and issues up with?
Well, I don't know. I think the buck stops with the council members, right? I mean, they're the ultimate. I mean, power,
yeah.
Right?
Then maybe we should have a group meeting about this and resolve this once and for all.
All right, so I'm gonna bring our focus back to our board. To normally this is sort of a closed from public input. I allowed an exception to that.
All right, thank you.
But I guess heard a little bit from a few of you. I don't know if others or Sharon or other people have some thoughts about the actual appeal.
This is Sharon. I apologize, I'm not on video anymore, but I guess I have to admit I don't have an appreciation of the history or the emotion or the frustration that's behind the discussion earlier, so I apologize for that because I can't follow it, to be honest. To understand what is going on, or to understand what maybe I could be a part of to help resolve it. But with that said, the piece regarding whether there is junk there, and I honestly can't tell if that's what we're supposed to be ruling on or not, or if it's already past that point because of the appeal. But I guess the narrow issue of whether I believe it's junk or not, whether it's shingles that are in a package to be used, I don't think it's junk. And with that said, I do have to drop the line in about 5 minutes. And like I said, I apologize. I don't have any of this background. I understand it's very frustrating. It sounds like, and there's a lot of emotion behind it. It sounds like from the city's perspective as well as the representatives on the line. And apologize for that because I don't have an appreciation of what's happened to be able to do anything about that at this moment. But my view is that the shingles are not junk.
and what about the first part? 'Cause it seems like if it's there in my reading, we can either say if it's not junk, then okay, the violation isn't valid. But what about the first part about the outside storage of materials? I guess that could be that. I mean, to me, it says it clearly states, again, I think it's probably a poorly worded code, but we've got what we've got. And it says in a residential zone, outside storage must be screened or, hidden from view if it's going to be outside.
Yeah, and on that point, it wasn't clear to me, this is Sharon again, it wasn't clear to me whether what the property we're talking about is in a residential zone or not. Because it sounds like the property itself is not residential, but I don't know how the zone is defined.
Yeah, is the zone defined as a business or is it multi-purpose or what is the actual zoned area?
I believe, and just correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's Central Business District is the zone, but it's also in this old village, which has multiple uses within. So it's a little different than.
There lies more of the ambiguity.
There's more ambiguity, absolutely.
I guess my interpretation of that is if there's multi-use within that zone, this happens to be a commercial use.
It's a central business district which allows for all residential uses. So if that's the case, then that means it allows for single family and multifamily homes. And it's also in the old village district.
But it's also true the property is not being used for a residential purpose right now.
Currently, yes.
Yeah.
So from my opinion, if it's a gray area there and there are multi-purpose uses, then I would probably default to what's the use of the property. That's that question. And it sounds like it's commercial.
Or business, technically, I think, yes.
Yes.
So I think commercial is that maybe a different categorization.
Maybe non-residential, more precise.
Yes.
Yeah, the way the code is written currently, there's sufficient ambiguity there to perhaps not have a violation. It's not very clear. And perhaps that's something that needs to be clarified in the future. I don't know.
I agree. I mean,
maybe that's the point that needs to be taken.
I think that is the point, and I think that's partly, some of our board has been involved with is trying to make these rules as clear as possible, so we're not put into this situation right in the future. I'm inclined to, because of the way the code is specifically written, I guess I think of the right language, to approve the appeal, I guess. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but I also think that the spirit of the law holds true for me. I would like to see the shingles be moved somewhere else until they're ready to be used. I'm not going to go down this path of who complained. I saw complaints, on the Facebook community page commenting on them. I've noticed them when I drive by. They're bright pink. I mean, so they're noticeable. I do think I would hope that you would consider doing that voluntarily as a goodwill gesture, because I do think the spirit of the law, doesn't want them, sort of sitting there. But I don't know that legally that we can enforce that, given the degree of ambiguity in both. That I don't think they're junk, and I do think they are in a non-residential zone. So I'm inclined to I guess again
grant the appeal. This would be the way to
yes
to characterize it.
I think it's reverse the violation.
Reverse the violation. Sure.
We can word it both ways. We'll
Yeah.
get our point across.
Yeah.
For me, I'm continuing to not getting any closer to thinking of it as a residential district or a residential zone, I guess is the word for it. So for me, it's all in the second sentence, and I just can't look at something like building materials and call it junk. Now, I agree, you know, the purpose of some of this property maintenance, you know, as well is to, you know, not have things like building materials out there. But as presently written, there's nothing here to suggest that I can see, and especially from just this 1450 whatever .30J, nothing in that statement alone that I think is necessarily something that holds in this situation. I think I would probably say that I would not agree with the original stance.
All right, is there, and partly hopefully we can get Sharon in here before she has to check out. Is there a motion to reverse the violation? Or was that the language, or to accept the appeal?
Guess we can word it both ways.
Yeah,
Grant the appeal or reverse the original violation.
I think,
Grant the appeal
I mean,
by-
we can include, but what's
Go ahead,
that,
Jessica.
Jessica?
Grant the appeal by reversing the violation.
Grant the appeal by reversing the violation. I like that. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Seems to incorporate the intent of our thoughts.
Yeah.
As she gets the language right, is there somebody that officially is willing to give a motion for that?
I'll motion that. I'll motion
I'll second.
reversal. I can't. Whatever.
Grant the reversal of the
Reversal of
grant the appeal to reverse the initial.
By reversal of the violation.
Okay, I'm not even gonna try and repeat it. I just.
Okay, I got you. And Sharon, you seconded?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mr. Burke to grant the appeal by reversing the violation at 129 West Franklin Street. This was seconded by Ms. Schroeder. Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Schroeder?
Yes.
Mr. Ogrid?
Yes.
Chair Brinegar?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So motion passes 4-0 to grant the appeal. We'll leave it at that. And I'm aware, you know, that there's a bigger history here, and I sense the emotion, right? You know, I think we're just trying to. I know it may have seemed like I was trying to not hear that, but I really want to try to respect sort of what I see as our role in this. And our role, you know, was to help interpret what I would say kind of some vague codes. We may try to clarify some of those codes so other people aren't put into this situation. But I'm aware that tonight, you know, it may not resolve all the feelings and the concerns, but we hopefully are just trying to do our best to be fair and to treat each case as it comes before us.
Right. It's not the purpose of the board to go out and search for violations.
Yeah,
We're here to hear the violations that are brought to us.
Right.
It's not my purpose either. I don't physically go out and search for violations. I just respond to complaints.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have one question from a person listening real quick before we break away from this. So it was asked, what is the property class listed on the Greene County Auditor records? Jessica, are you able to pull that up?
Give me just a second.
Okay. I have too many windows.
It was actually in the packet. It's listed as commercial.
It is listed as commercial? Okay.
It's in the packet.
So for the person asking that question, it is listed as commercial.
Okay. All right. So moving on to our next item on the agenda, old business, property maintenance code review. I know that's something that we've been working on. I don't know if there are things you wanted to share about that, Jess.
To be completely honest, I updated all the requests, I believe, that had been asked by the board, or I attempted to at least. So Pam, I'm not sure if you want to chime in on any of this. I know that Philip has already
Yeah,
made more comments.
Philip had a couple more items that just came in a day or so ago. I'm not sure when you sent those to me. Maybe it was the weekend, that need to be incorporated in that didn't get done before this meeting.
So this is our goal to like help to try to alleviate these kind of issues where we have, you know, these sort of issues where vague terminology or vague wording that doesn't necessarily fit, that gets mixed up and people feel, you know, attacked or whatever.
Yeah, and perhaps, like we discussed, perhaps this particular case has pointed out another section that is a little vague or could be reworded better, so that it is less confusing and less objective, or less subjective, I should say.
Were there any other comments by anyone regarding the code, or that anyone has, or that I can take notes on? Or
I didn't have any additional comments other than to the code in general, other than like, you know, some of the ambiguity that came up here tonight, and maybe separating out even those two portions of it, right? Of outside storage versus junk. And I think some of that was we were already kind of working on some definitions of that already. So I don't really have anything new to add other than what was highlighted tonight.
So we'll continue to work on it, and we'll send you revisions, and hopefully move forward from there.
Yeah, appreciate the updates from our last discussion. What was updated looks a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
And we do have someone who would like to speak for public comment when we get to that. So just to let you know, if we're wrapping up this part of the conversation.
I guess one question I've got is once this code is finalized, what happens to it? Where does it go? Who approves it? Who, you know, what's the next round?
Pretty sure it has to go to planning board, and then it would have to go to council, and then there has to be a public hearing.
Well, and Jessica, before that, so when you guys are done with it and you think you've got it good, then it goes to planning board. After planning board, when they think it's ready for council, it actually does go to our attorney first, and is thoroughly reviewed from the legal side of it. Then it would go to council as an ordinance, which does have a public hearing portion to it before it would become something that would enter our code officially. So it's a long process.
Thank you. Yep, that's good.
All right.
So there'll be plenty of review and time for input and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else with property maintenance review, we do have any new business. Were there any
updates on any of the old cases or anything that came out?
I thought there was an old case update, but I can't remember specifically what it was now. Pam, do you remember?
The only one I can think of was for the village review board.
Okay. No, then I don't believe so. Sorry.
Okay. So is this, so it sounds like, Pam, there was somebody that wanted to give a public comment. And do we need to, are they allowed to just state their name? I don't know if we have to swear them in.
Yeah, you don't have to swear them in. They just need to state their name and their address for the record.
Great. All right, go ahead, sir. Sounds like there's, you'd like to make a public comment?
Yeah, I have some questions. My name's David Bucklew. I live at 126 Lower Hillside Drive. On the property maintenance, I talked to the mayor about this tonight, and I was asking him about what kind of regulations were going to go on that people could do or not do in their yard. The reason I ask is my yard, and there are many other properties in Bellbrook which would easily qualify, was recently certified for a wildlife habitat area. And in that, you have to have food, water, cover, places to raise young, and sustainable practices. Sustainable practices would include compost heaps, and there's been a compost heap on the property I'm currently on since, not exaggeration, early 1950s. So it's been here, and it's currently here. The other thing is, as you go to the back of the properties, and this is not just this area of Bellbrook. There are many other areas of Bellbrook we could all easily cite, but the back of my property is woods. It's not yard, it's woods, and it's wooded, and it's not just a little bit of woods, but it's acres and acres of it, and it stretches for several miles across my property and several others. So in that woods, because it's a natural area, you'll have large trees that eventually fall and come down, and they rot and they go back in the ecosystem. And the people I associate this activity with, who have been very helpful to me, are big on things that you might call, for lack of a better term, and listening to you all tonight talk about the DART thing was illuminating, but some people might call it yard waste or trash or whatever. And it's not, because as those trees come down, the lumber comes down. I mean, these are not quarter-acre lots. Not picking on anyone, but these are not quarter-acre lots on South Linda Drive. So as they come down, these create what am I trying to say? They create areas for animals to live in, and it's beautiful. I mean to tell you, it's absolutely beautiful, and I think I live in paradise. I really do. So, but I know it's here. I know it stretches from the edge of town, from Washington Mill Road and the Canoe Livery, it stretches all the way up to Bellbrook Park easily. And then you have the property that's going to be, from what I understand, is going to be developed for housing, where they were going to put the snow resort. And then you have, of course, our whole southern area is bordered by a large metro park. I get nervous, and I'm not picking on any of you, because I don't know enough about you to pick on you. So you're all good with me. But I want to make sure the city is not overstepping its bounds and trying to create what I would call a sterile atmosphere in the community as far as yards go. Because if someone said to me, we want you to have chem lawn, and we want you to have a perfectly manicured lawn, and we want daisies over here and daffodils over there, where I said I was living in paradise, I'd be thinking I was living in hell. And I don't want that. And that's what I'm afraid of. And I understand this, and I listened to what you said about process, which was important to me, because I knew it was before your board, but I knew it did not originate with your board. And so you're saying it goes from your board, it goes to the planning board, it gets legal review for form and content, and then eventually goes to city council. But to me, this is the most important process. It's not the city council. The important process is during this stage where it's being put together. And it really is. And people might think it's the council, but the council is really just the last, the last stop. I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry, but I like my yard, and my neighbors have got, I got a neighbor that has a huge bundle of trees that they brought down, and it's up in the wooded area. And I think it's wonderful. We got deer, we got raccoon, had a skunk. We had that caused some drama, but we got deer, we got raccoon, we got all kinds of wildlife beyond my wildest imagination, not to mention, obviously, birds and things. So I want to make sure that that type of environment is protected and respected. The other thing too, I'm going to throw this in, then I'll shut up. I went to a seminar in Yellow Springs maybe a year ago, and I don't have it in front of me, but there's a national, they take native plants, and what they tell people, and they say grass is not a native plant. Now, obviously, we all have grass in our yard, but they say grass is actually an imported plant, came over from Europe, it's not native, and it used to be a luxury plant for the rich and the wealthy, because before lawnmowers, how would you get it cut? You don't want to know the answer. But the thing is, so there's a big movement to bring in native plants in, and I don't have it, but I have a good friend here in Bellbrook who her front yard looks, it should be winning the Bellbrook Beautiful Award. It's got native plants in it. She's doing it in her front yard, not her backyard, her front yard. And I don't think that people's creativity and differences, between people should be, I think it should be encouraged, is what I think it should be. Otherwise, let's all move to Huber Heights. And yeah, you heard me say that. So I guess that's my comment. I hope it doesn't go too far in the process of making Bellbrook a sterile community. And sterile is, I'm stealing that word actually from Mary Grace. We were talking about zoning. She's a thing she liked about Bellbrook is that it's lived in and it's not sterile. And she did say this. And so the thing that she didn't care about Centerville is that it's sterile and it's not lived in. And I tend to agree with that. And I like the lived in feel. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. It makes me think a few years ago I attended a session at the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, or I forget who sponsors it, but it's for cities around the Dayton area come together every year to discuss all things fun related to like zoning. And there was a great session on yards that are not traditionally just grass, right? That have native plants that could look overgrown, or do we have codes that are going to adapt to that as more people try to be respectful of the environment? And it might look like weeds to some, but actually if you do it well, I think it looks amazing, incredible. But that I think we lag behind on some of the vision for that and codes that could support that. So I hear, that was one aspect, but also just this issue of sort of parts of properties that are not yards that are forested. And we've only dipped into that once recently. I think we did have a case where a tree fell in a very wooded area. It was a steep hill, and we just said, let it be, right? We didn't require it. So these are worthy issues that I think are good to look to as we go into the future. Looking at, as well as I know recently we like solar panels or other things came up, just things that probably 50 years ago they would not have thought of, but seem germane now. So I appreciate the comments.
Yep. And those are things that will need to be considered in the updates. Obviously, everything's not perfect. And I think we talked about having a time period where they are reviewed so that they don't become outdated or things of that nature. And I think that's something that we talked about so that there is variety of types of areas that are in Bellbrook. They're not all just manicured lawns. There are nature areas, there are wooded areas, there are a lot of different types of areas that may need different types of ordinances.
Well, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I would hope that and what Mr. Dart talked about, and I understood both sides of the conversation, by the way, but he's got some real concerns. And what I would hope that we don't end up, look, if I wanted to, this is the best way to put it, if I wanted to live in a homeowners association with a gate, in a board meeting with somebody telling me what color my mailbox could be, how big my fence could be, and they essentially they replace city and local governments is what they do, I'd move to one. I don't want to live in one. And I would hope that things would opt to flexibility and individual freedoms, if you will, in this area. I know what, and the other thing is, I like Bellbrook. I like it a lot. I like all of it. It's not like I like one street, but not another street. I like the old village. I like some of the small homes down there. They're homes where people who might not otherwise be able to afford the community can be part of the community. They're homes where people can get started in life or retire in life. I like it all. And down there you got small yards. You got a councilman in the old village. He's got no setback. His setback is 1/10 of a micro inch. I mean, and if you start going in and applying different standards, and especially when you start applying community maintenance standards, it can have a disproportionate impact upon certain areas of the community simply based on how old it is. Bellbrook was founded in 1816, you know, but what we think of as the latest development, and we should think about, you know, it goes back, and but that is what, and it's the old part that gives us our character, gives us our charm, if you will. It seems to be a popular word right now, but it gives us our character. It sets us apart. Without the old part, we're just another housing development. And okay, I could talk for 4 hours, and I don't think you want me to do that. So thank you very much.
All right, we're like hours for a meeting. So any other comments?
Yeah, I think Mr. Dart had a comment. He has his hand raised. Okay.
I want to make sure I understand this. So with the current code, I believe Philip spoke of this, a couple of you did. After this, it will go to council and possibly be reviewed and have a public hearing about this specific code and this specific violation. Is that correct?
The whole property maintenance code is being like revamped.
Right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It would go to the planning board after we review it.
Yeah.
And
the
then,
whole thing's being reviewed, updated, thought of in, you know, more modern times. And yeah,
all right.
Not specific to this case call.
It's not specific. This has been something that's been ongoing for a while that we're just sort of trying to modernize it. Some of it hasn't been touched in 25 or more years, right?
Right.
So yes, and just to be clear, after we get input, it goes to the planning board, then it goes to city council, then there's a public hearing.
Yeah, after the lawyer, but yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with your.
So there won't be any public opinion or public speaking or suggestions then until after, like after the new zoning or new codes are written. Is that what you're saying?
They'll be written but open for public input. They won't be approved until there's a public input section.
So we're talking about things like property maintenance violations, sidewalks, junk cars. I mean, anything.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Exactly.
When approximately do you see that happening? Is that a year from now or months or?
I would say a couple months maybe, but it's hard to say. It depends on, you know, how many times it goes back and forth between this board and how many times it goes back and forth between the planning board. You can always be a part of any of those meetings. So you can always be a part of the board, and like you're doing right now, and have a comment. So while they're discussing any of that information, you're always more than welcome to comment or chime in on any of that. So.
All right.
Yeah, for instance,
Sounds
our
good.
last meeting was entirely that. It was a public meeting that was discussing changes to the code. So, yes.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Pam, anybody else?
Tech, I'm not muted. Okay. Nope, that was it.
Okay.
That's not right.
All right. All right, I have no more business. So is there a move to adjourn our meeting? It's at
Motion to
8:28.
adjourn.
A second.
A motion was made by Mr. Unger to adjourn the BZA-PRC meeting of February 16th. And this was seconded by Mr. Burke. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.